A Child of the Wolves, Chapter 12. The Rules of the Pack. During the summer, the pack moved from one meadow to another, following the caribou. Through those endless days, Snowdrift grieved for her lost pups. Her skin no longer hung loosely, and her movements were quick, but the pain never left her eyes. Despite her love for Granite, she could not forget her lost children. Since Granite first looked on the world, 4 moons had come and gone. His legs had grown and his strength increased. He could run a long time without tiring, farther and faster than on that day when he fled from the bearded stranger. Now that Granite was older, the wolves insisted that he follow the rules of the pack. He tried, but at first his tail kept him in continual trouble. Wolves carry their tails hanging loosely, but like all Siberian huskies, Granite carried his tail high. It was white and thick and beginning to curl over his back. To the rest of the pack, it was a flag of defiance. Each time Granite passed near another pack member, his lofty tail provoked snarls and nips. Breeze, who mostly ignored him, could not overlook a waving tail, and sometimes it was too much for Snowdrift. At first, Granite did not know that the position of a tail sent a message to the pack. Wolves' tails stand tall only when they catch the scent of prey or feel especially good about themselves. The pup's bushy tail told the wolves that he was an impudent youngster who did not accept the law of the pack. As Granite watched the wolves carefully, he learned that the tail was the wolf's badge of rank. Ebony held his own tail high. When the leader walked by other wolves, their tails drooped and they lowered their heads. Even Snowdrift, who was almost as powerful within the pack as Ebony, sometimes did this. Then he noticed that Climber cringed before Roamer, just as all wolves cringed before Ebony and Snowdrift. In the same way, Roamer was careful to keep his tail down when Strider was near. It was weeks before Granite could keep his own tail down without effort. Even then, he sometimes forgot. When this happened, a snarl soon reminded him to drop the offending tail. Before he arrived, Climber was the lowest male in the pack. Now that position belonged to Granite. Climber was friendly, but pleased to have someone beneath him. He watched Granite's tail as closely as did Strider, but as soon as it drooped, he forgot the offense and was ready to play. One afternoon, in late summer, the pack slept sprawled in the shade. The cottonwoods had begun to turn the slopes yellow, but the air was hot and still. No leaf turned. Searching for the slightest whisper of wind, Granite stretched out on his stomach with his nose on his paws. A sharp nudge from Climber woke the sleeping dog. In his mouth, Climber held a piece of sheepskin, the remains of an old kill. He shook it, backed up a few steps, then shook it again. It was an invitation to play. Granite's eyes brightened. Despite the heat, he jumped up, grabbed one end of the hide, and began to pull. As the pair tugged the hide back and forth, the game took them away from the slumbering pack and out into the sunny meadow. With a sudden jerk, Climber tore the sheepskin free and ran several steps through the grass before Granite could follow. A sudden shadow fell over the meadow. Granite looked up to see an enormous eagle diving toward Climber. The hide fell from Climber's mouth. The eagle swooped low, screamed, "Kia!" and swerved up again, just in time to escape Clymer's snapping jaws. As the bird rose in the air, Granite saw a wash of golden feathers across the back of its dark head. With wings spread wide, the eagle seemed as big as Ebony. The eagle turned and swooped again. Again, Clymer leaped into the air and snapped. The cruel hook of the eagle's beak and the spread of its curved talons made Granite think that the bird was attacking Clymer. Fear rose in the dog's throat and kept him from going to the young wolf's aid. Once more the eagle dived toward Clymer. This time, Granite's feeling for his friend outweighed his fear. His muscles tensed, but before he could move, he realized that the dives were a game, at least for the eagle. After the bird had swooped down more times than there were wolves in the pack, Clymer became annoyed. He barked. At the sharp sounds of distress, the resting wolves awoke. Romer raised his head, stretched, and trotted to Clymer's rescue. On the eagle's next pass, he leaped beside his brother. Teeth clicked in the air, and a single feather floated to the ground. The eagle was not ready to flirt with the jaws of two wolves. With the game over, it flew away. Through the empty air drifted a final "Kia!" Romer picked his way back to the pack, walking carefully, his head held high. He passed Granite without a glance, but a low growl drifted back on the still air. As the sun sank toward the mountains, the pack got up. One by one, they stretched and began to play. Nipping Snowdrift's tail, Ebony began a game of tag. She chased him, with Breeze and Romer close on her heels. It looked like so much fun that Granite scampered after them, but was left behind. Panting, he watched Clymer start a mock battle with Strider. The young wolf rushed at Strider, shoved the older wolf with a shoulder, and dashed away. Strider chased Clymer, nudged the youngster, and stood up, throwing his front legs over Clymer's shoulders. Back and forth they ran, leaping and tumbling in the grass. It looked like a real fight, but their wagging tails said it was only a game. Granite's excitement overcame his judgment. As Ebony ran past, the dog joined in, darting among legs and nipping at tails. For a time, no one paid attention. Then Strider noticed him. He snarled and lunged. With a swipe, he flipped Granite over. The dog tumbled across the grass, coming to rest at the base of a small rock. He scrambled to his feet, but did not plunge back into the playing pack. He was afraid of Strider's teeth and paws. The romp ended when Ebony threw back his head and howled. At once the other wolves rushed over and formed a circle almost touching. Together they sang, their muzzles pointing at the sky, their eyes bright and their tails wagging. The music ran through the air and into the corners of the valley. The wolves sang of the joy of the hunt and their trust in the pack. Granite was too small to join the circle, but he sang anyway. It was a happy time. When the song was finished, Ebony started off at an easy lope, his tail swinging and his head high. The rest of the pack followed him in single file, all but Snowdrift. With Granite, she watched the hunters ford the stream and disappear among the tall cottonwoods. As the early light shone through the leaves that shivered gold in the morning breeze, the first hunter returned. Long before the wolf could be seen, his howls alerted Snowdrift and Granite. It was Ebony. He was alone, and he brought no meat. Snowdrift greeted him with happy whines and high-pitched squeals. She licked his face. He whined in reply and called for the pair to follow him. Granite did not know where Ebony was taking them. At Snowdrift's side, he splashed through the water and ran after the pack leader. Ebony loped along a well-marked path that wound through the trees, between low hills, and up a slope scattered with blueberry, cranberry, and rhododendrons. Snowdrift and Granite followed Ebony over a rise. Before they saw the pack below them, they heard the raucous cries of ravens perched in trees above the fallen caribou. The two wolves and the dog ran down the slope toward the pack. It was the first time Granite had been taken to a kill site. He felt grown up. As they neared the feeding wolves, Strider saw them. To Granite's surprise, he stopped eating and drew back. So did the other wolves. Ebony and Snowdrift stepped up and began to eat. Though Granite was hungry, he did not join them. He had learned his lesson well. The leaders ignored the noisy ravens who fluttered above them, swooping down at times to snatch a mouthful of meat. While Ebony and Snowdrift fed, the rest of the pack danced around them, whining. The pair paid no attention. They ate and ate until Granite thought they would eat everything, even the bones. At last they finished. Hoping for a signal to eat, the rest of the pack crawled toward the kill. They moved on their bellies, their tails curled tightly between their legs. Ebony did not allow the other wolves to feed at once. Instead, he stood over the kill and snapped at each wolf who came too close. Only after they pled with him and licked his muzzle did he let them eat. The pack rushed to the meal, but Granite did not follow them. He waited until Romer and Strider had torn off several chunks of meat. When he thought they were absorbed in their food, he rushed in, hoping to snatch a bite. Strider saw the little dog. He snarled and snapped, his teeth closing in the air near Granite's head. The dog fell back. After a time, he took a cautious step toward the kill. Again, Strider snarled, a warning. Afraid to make another try, Granite waited while Strider ate. He ate for a long time. When he finished, he raised his head and glared at Granite. Then he walked away. A black cloud of ravens flew down and began to eat. Still, Strider waited. Still Granite waited. He waited until Strider lay down beside Breeze. He waited even longer. He waited until Romer was sprawled out asleep. Only then did Granite dare to take a mouthful.